Welcome to Slope Reliability, the show where we learn about reliability, observability, and resilience one day at a time. I'm your host, Stephen Townsend. Welcome back to Slope Reliability. I'm Stephen Townsend, and this is the show where we learn about SRE and reliability and observability one episode at a time. Today, I'm joined by Priyam Kumar. He's an SRE and DevOps engineer with over 9 years of expertise in systems design, specializing in building and optimizing highly available, scalable infrastructure. Priyam, how are you today?
Yeah, I'm good. And thanks for interviewing me today, Stephen. It's a pleasure joining you here. I've just heard people about it, and now I'm here. So, yeah, it feels great.
It's fantastic to have you here. I love hearing stories about what's happening in the world of SRE. You've just started your day. I'm just finishing my work day. It's time for me to have a beer. You probably have a coffee or a tea or whatever. Do you drink coffee?
Yeah. That's what fuels us, right?
How many coffees do you have a day?
Not much. I'm in a detox phase. Earlier, I used to have gulp down 3 to 4 lattes and then black coffee in between. But I've cut down on milk and sugar. So it's like kind of one black coffee a day. So that's what I've restricted myself to.
I'm still on 4 a day, but no sugar, just a little bit of milk. And
in our part of this is what we brought up with milk, sugar, tea, all of that concoction. And once you go through that sharp insulin spike, yeah, it's better staying off it. I'm trying it now.
I'm a big fan of the low carb thing. But anyway, low carb and coffee aside, we caught up about 2 weeks ago or a week ago, and we wanted to cover this topic of getting a start in SRE, which I think is very topical because out of all the things that I get messaged for on LinkedIn the most, it's I want to get into SRE. How do I get started? So I thought we'd just start with you just sharing your story about how you got into SRE. How did it begin?
Yeah. Before even starting, Google has a very generic definition of what an SRE is, right? So generally, when Google started this SRE team, it had an issue just to manage the infrastructure at a scale. It was not possible with the current set of people that they had, the infra people. It won't basically cut it. So then they thought, how can we do it better? And then they got software engineers and they programmed the infrastructure, and then that's how you got into. That's the generic information you get online, right? But most of the companies don't operate that way. That's why, to starters, freshers, they would feel, maybe I need to, start with that. But not really. Here I am with an SRE, and I had a very humble beginning to it. So I started my career back in 2015. August 2015 is when I joined Tata Consultancy Services. I did have some programming background out of college. We really did not have any idea. We're just fine. We got a job. Now we are going to move the world. Start career, I got into HPC. This was a high performance computing. It had a lot of C code in it. And we were just trying to optimize those matrix multiplication. That was too much into it. But as with all research projects, that did not fly off because there was no market for it. And also that project was self-dropped. And we got transferred into CCC. That's for the Cloud Command Center. So that's where this journey actually started. In here, again, I was not too much into the reliability things of it. It was just TCS has multitudes of clients across geographies, and then they have their infra. So that's where we started. So we used to ship those Linux boxes in on-prem data centers. They had their own. We used to migrate these clients to TCS own infrastructure in, let's say, there used to be OpenStack and then AWS and all. So that was the beginning of it. And for around 2 to 3 years, I took that time to just understand what is exactly going on. I could have been a bit early, but yeah, that's how life goes on. And then I thought, okay, maybe this is not something I can continue doing because the learning was not that much. And then 18, again, like almost 3 years later, I joined Question Pro. So this was startup. I was like third employee in the team at that time when I joined. And this was something I've never experienced before. Like back going from an MNC to startup kind of a culture the shift is insane, right? So in here you have to take care of everything. Like you are not just a dev who is committing the code and making nice UIs and all, but apart from that, how that code runs to a simple infra, a server going up and down. You are responsible for everything. So there I got a taste of what it takes to actually run an infrastructure. What are the components of it? Databases, Linux, middleware, Nginx, HAProxy. I mean, whole sorts of it. And there the learning curve was very steep for me. Yeah, I was still in my early years, so I could slog it out. That's where I started. And from there on, we have multiple things: automation, CI/CD pipelines. We learn on the go, and then we implemented it. That's the beauty of it. If you join a very mid-sized company and with a very few employees, it's like, how do you want to take it? If you are a guy who wants a very template kind of approach, okay, give me these steps and I will follow it. Or there is someone to guide you, okay, you need to these things to get it done. Then this is not for you, mid-sized company and the smallest scale company. But you are like, okay, bring it on. If you have this kind of attitude, they'll give you that runway to learn, fail on the job, and then fix it. They say fail fast and fix fast. So that is how I learned. And when I had joined, I was okay, fine, let's give me a shot. Fine, if it gets too intense, okay, fine, I'll quit and get another job. I was still in my teens, I guess 2-3 years in the job, no major responsibility. And now this is going to be seven years here. So yeah.
Oh wow. So you're still there.
I'm still here. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic.
And, I was just thinking, this July I am going to be completing 10 years in tech, a decade. And time flies by. I could never even account for it year after year. Okay, fine, this thing's coming and that thing coming. So yeah, that's how life goes. And yeah, I'm very much enjoying it here.
So I think I missed at the start. What's your current company called?
Question Pro Solutions Private Limited. So
Question Pro.
Yeah, Question Pro. So this is a market research company, and that deals into survey software. So they have multiple products, customer experience, workforce, and all of it. And then, cool. But yeah, the major bread and butter thing is surveys. So if I have to sum it up in one word, so like making surveys, respondent experience.
One of the things that stands out to me is how when you work for a really big organization, it's easy to become like a cog in the machine, and you have the thing that you work on, and you get given this thing, and you do this thing with it, and you pass it on. Yeah. But like you got the experience of a startup where there's just no choice. You have to do everything. Yeah. I think in New Zealand, it's such a small country. The companies, there's just not the scale. So there's a little bit more of that in every company. Even the big companies, you still have to be across a lot more things because there's just not enough people to go around.
Yeah. I just remembered this instance. Like it suddenly occurred to me, and I'm not even thinking about it. When I had joined Question Pro, just few months into it, we were doing one OS upgrade, right? And like I was still very new to it, so like just taking care of things which were not actually that critical and all. So we were doing one upgrade, and that upgrade failed. And it turns out that upgrade itself was faulty, something of that sort. And then we were looking into, okay, what can we do to fix it? Because the business hours were going to start. And I found this solution online. So I actually had to go into the C compiler, the C code, and then, okay, fine, this is where this issue is. Fortunately, I got that. Otherwise, we had to roll it back. And then we fixed it, and then how it went out. I was like, wow, I have never done this before. Yeah, this was again 7 years back, but it suddenly came to me, Yeah, that's how it goes.
That's interesting to me, those moments of real intensity. Oh my goodness. And then how people respond in those moments. And so it sounds like you handled the pressure really well, and you were like, you found a solution, put it through.
I have so many battle scars, man. Just imagine a team comprising of 2 to 3 people, and then, okay, one of them is quite senior enough, so he won't get into the day-end affairs. And the stack is still building up. You have this phase where you're not really ready for the scale, you are building up. So that ramp up period is there. So another example I'll tell you is, there was a bug in one of the products, and our master database has a flurry of read queries, some read queries going into minutes, and flurry of it. So it eventually meant that our database server is going to crash at any moment of time. Until that fix went live, we had to do something on that server level. So I remember just in a couple of minutes, I had to write a shell script that is going to run infinitely. It is going to show the processes, grep for that particular select pattern, get those process ID and kill it. And it used to run every 30 seconds. So those kind of hacks we have done.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure you won't get this kind of experience anywhere else. Again, like this was very early in our career, and lots of learning and all. I'm pretty sure these kind of things don't happen now. And
I reckon though, you say those kind of things don't happen now, but this is the reality of the work that we do. I think I was talking to someone, I was actually talking to John Osmore today, which is amazing, by the way. And he mentioned something about there's our imagined view of work, the work that we do and how it is. And then there's the reality of what it is. And I think that we now imagine that there's this nice, clean, it's so safe and everything's automated and then everything works well. And then there's the reality. It's still just, there's lots of panic. There's lots of and doing all these different things every day. But these things are amazing because you did this thing and you call it a dirty hack. Did it solve the problem?
Of course, it did. Yeah.
There you go. That's amazing, right? You as a human being found a solution to a problem.
Yeah. Over time, I would want to call myself as a problem solver, So you are not actually tied down to a stack. Okay, I maybe know something really well. Okay, fine. That is my hard set. But at the end of the day, you really have to develop that problem solving mindset. There's a problem. You take a step back and look at the bigger picture. First of all, don't panic. There is to be 100 people breathing over your shoulder just to get something done. But it's your thing. Just take a minute or two, assess the situation, and what is the best thing to do at that moment of time. And more often than not, it will come to you. And again, solution, like ultimately, you have to get to fix this thing. It doesn't have to be very clean. It actually has to get things done. That's what I have realized. You don't have to get very sophisticated infra. Just a few cron tab is going to get your work done. Fine. What's the need of, I guess, you're not getting any boundary points for saying, I have this high available infrastructure and then this Jenkins doing that thing. Ultimately, when you just have to run one command. So why the need of all this hoopla around it? Keep it simple. KISS principle that it is.
When I was in the SRE incubator team, we stood up basically a Grafana platform for the org so people could build dashboards of anything at all, really. And we wanted to host it on Kubernetes, but there was all this kind of pressure to create pipelines of deploying and like to use Helm charts and that. But no, in the end, we deployed with a PowerShell script. We just ran one command and everything got deployed. And that's all we needed to do. And we didn't use Helm charts because it was just way too complicated for what we needed. We just has a manifest file.
That's what I've been telling people around. Even people I talk to, my friends and folks from my college, juniors who really reach out to me for guidance, and then they kind of really get bogged down with the development around them. Should I be really learning this, that? And my suggestion to them is very simple. You can learn anything, right? Fine, learn it. But unless you get to work on it, okay, fine. If you really think you can build some side projects around it, actually work on it, go ahead and learn it. Or if you have that chance in your current org to implement it, then learn it. But just for the sake of learning it, you are going to forget it somewhere down the line. And that is one part on the learning. And one thing in the org side, you have big Kubernetes drive going on. Fine, host everything in Kubernetes. But one thing is, ratio, do you really need that?
Yep.
That discussion has to be absolutely there. We have seen instances when the hit itself is some 1,000 hits, let's say a minute or so, very minimal. Think out from, and we have like 10 microservices out of it, and one thing talks to another, and like, why this unnecessary complexity? So just to start with, okay, fine. You want to containerize it, fine. Just for the deployment and all, that's really okay. Okay, you can just go ahead with Docker Compose, right? Have a Docker Compose file, spin it up, let it run. And when you really feel that you're starting to get scale, that is the time when you will talk about it, or maybe sometime before. We can think about a number. When we hit that number, then we start talking about the orchestration. That discussion should be there. For us, like there is no discussion because we are a very really small team and we really don't have a choice around it. So we'll go by this. This is just for the general consensus out there, keeping it very simple.
That rings true from some of the messages from the book, The Lean Startup. It talks about like, don't try and build for scale from day one. Just do whatever you need to do to verify your idea it works as a business first. And I think we also forget that it's just part of life and technology is we rewrite and we redesign things all the time. That's okay. You don't have to predict what you're going to need in 20 years' time because that is literally impossible. Just like you said, just do something that works.
there is this principle around it, YAGNI, you are not going to need it. So every time I think don't invest too much time into thinking, fine, okay, I want to make it such a way that it's going to last 100 years from now. No, you're not going to need it. Things will change, requirements will change, you need to restructure it. So only at that, okay, fine. It's not like tomorrow it's going to change also. So we have to be there has to be a middle line. Don't spend too much time into it. Find something that works and then stick with it, and incremental progress, like we say.
Okay. I'm going to pick your brain on something. So, like I said, I get people who contact me most often who have been performance testers, because that was what a lot of people know me from when I used to do that. They say they want to get into SRE and they want my help of how they can do that. And there's three things I've got thoughts on that I want to get your view on. The first one is, what do they mean by SRE? Because it means different things at different places. And hey, I'm the first person to say, I've never been an SRE. I've never done anything that Google did. I was part of a team who looked at reliability, but I wasn't even on call, right? I'm not an SRE, never have been. I just talk about reliability ideas, right? And so the first thing is, what do you mean by that? Because I think a lot of the time, it could be, do you want to be on call with the production systems? Do you want to be more looking at observability? Are you bored of the performance testing side of things and you want to branch out? Or do you just want to do cool new things? What does SRE mean to a person?
Like you said, this thing means for n number of people, there would be n kinds of definition. I'm afraid, but there is no really a generic definition that you can cling to and claim for SRE. But I still try to generalize it. What is an SRE? We have to understand how it evolved, right? Earlier, we used to have ops person, someone who is actually looking into operations. So that is the sysadmin guy, and there's a fleet of servers, right? 20, 30, 100, whatever, and depending on the team, they have Linux servers right there in the data centers. Maybe they're managing or on cloud, whatever. And now their thing is to ensure that those servers keep on running. And by servers, I also mean the network stack with it. You have routers, you have switches and everything. Now, these are your ops person. Few of them could still be right there in the data center, switching cables around, but not everyone needs to be there. But you still have IPMI connections to those devices and you have to manage it. Fine. Makes sense. Now, but with scale, you are going every year, you are, let's say, doubling it or incrementing it. Now you get to a point, earlier you were managing 100 devices. Now you have close to 500,000. Let's say if there was 2%, do you expect incremental approach to that too? That's not really going to work out. So let's say 10 into 10 servers got 100. So into 10. So you're not going to 2 into 10 as in 20 people managing that. It's not going to scale out that way, right? So we really needed a solution to this. This is the basics of it. This particular thing will stand true for all the orgs. So when I say SRE, you really need to understand systems, where code base is hosted, how that thing works out, what network is, how a server functions, how code is deployed and all. You really need to understand that. That's the first thing. You really need to understand what are the health matrices, how you can, when the server is crying for help, how can you gauge it before? What are the key parameters? You have to understand that. And then you have to get in the shoes of a developer. I don't think saying a developer will make sense, but think about, you really don't want to be doing mundane stuff or repetitive stuff over and over again. You have to have this mindset. This is actually true, by the way, for our team too. This is what I keep on telling others. If you find yourself doing one thing over and over again, it's time to automate this. Like no two ways about it. And that is the only skill you need to learn. Okay, fine. Very simple. You need to run one command over multitudes of servers. Time to get things like Ansible. Learn Ansible. Very simple. Fine. You have a playbook. It runs a couple of commands there. Done. Now you need a periodic kind of job deployment. That's how things evolve, right? You have dev, they committed code, and then it's like, oh, now I have committed code, and now this needs to run into this server. There's a package going to be built. I would still want to run some test into it, and then it has to be deployed. And then someone thought of an idea, okay, how about we create a system when someone just commits it, it creates a chain of event which ends up actually deploying that code into server. That's your CI/CD pipeline is, right? Yep. So all of things are there. You just have to have this mindset. You see things happening around it, and you just want to make your life less miserable. I wanted to say better, but it doesn't work out that way.
Now, we automate all these things, all the toil, all the repetitive things which are easy. They don't take a lot of mental strain.
Mhm.
We're now automating them. So what's left? What does our work become? We're left with all the hard stuff, all the ambiguous things we can't. So in a way, it's so much harder because you're thinking so much harder all day rather than being able to have moments of, oh, thank goodness I just get to press a few buttons for a while and copy and paste some things. And
That's how you will progress, right? Unless you have time up your hand to actually look into those stuff, there are a host of things, right? You have to still think about the scale. Unless you have time off that you can see, okay, fine, over past 6 months, this has been the scale. Very simple thing would be, I'm not sure if you have heard, there has been outages out there, right? I think in GitHub it happened. So one of their database table ran out of that ID. This was, and then they ran out of it. And this is very basic, right? Had someone been, keeping a tab into it, okay, fine, these are my big tables, and this is a kind of data I'm getting into it. And like int is not going to cut out. There's a limit to it. And we had this thing, right? So we had one of the issues when we actually ran into the same thing. And fine, we are not monitoring it, like we have to admit. But then we took a leap out of it, and then now we have a monthly job which we are tracking the progress, and then all the ID fields we have converted into big int because we know eventually it's going to fill out. So unless you get out of that rut, like some mundane job you are keeping over it, so you're not going to focus into these keys areas, thinking about the scale, fine, how many, over the year, over months, how did the traffic increase? Do we have to do some capacity planning into it? So all those proactive things come into picture. Otherwise, you are always chasing it, reactive approach. This happened. Now what do we do? Always, chasing the fire. Like thing is, just have someone or maybe as a team, if you take this approach. By the way, I had read this, a very interesting story. I don't remember where, but there was two guys who were swimming, and then they could see one child, he was drowning, and they had just come out, and then they found it drowning, so they swam back and took him out, and then they found another one. They went back and then came back, and while they were going and coming back, it used to come 1 2 3, it kept on coming. And now this guy, he suddenly started walking away. So his friend was like, guys, man, these kids are drowning, why not coming back? So he said, I'm going uphill and see who is throwing them. So this is what I'm talking about. So you cannot keep chasing problems day in and day out. Otherwise, you will never finish. You actually have to move up. Yeah, upstream. I think there was a book called Upstream, or there is something called as such. I don't remember where. I just casually came across it. So you have to get to the root of the things. Find something happening. So you actually have to find out where is it originating from. Can you actually fix it? That mindset has to be there.
A slightly different viewpoint. I think there's also we can overdo trying to predict what's going to happen, whereas a lot of the systems we work with today they're unknown and they're unpredictable. They're too complex to possibly predict what will happen. So just like sure. You had that issue where the database ran out of indexes, or you got through it though, right? Like you got through it and you fixed it up and you get the business keeps going, right? I think it's the fact that being ready for anything and trusting and knowing I can solve problems as they come is just as valuable. But I agree, like this, and the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, it talks about those different quadrants, like urgent, not urgent, important, not important. Like if we get stuck in urgent, important things all the time and not thinking about the planning and what can we do to make things better tomorrow, we'll always be fighting fires. Yeah.
It doesn't 100%. It doesn't work that way. And one of the things that this is actually the definition of an SRE or a systems team. You have to be battle ready every time. Right? Anytime, what do you call the battle horn can be blown, and then you are right in the battlefield. Something can happen. There could be a DDoS attack. There could be some bugs, server apps crashing here and there, and you can be there at any point in time. 100%. So it is there. You still have to carve out some time just to look at the overall infra to see how things are progressing. And are there some issues or some events that you can actually see them happening? And can you stop them from happening? I think that's what I really mean. So unless you have time up your sleeves to actually have a look over the broader picture, so you won't be able to prevent them.
We're almost out of time, but one more thing following on from that is when people ask me how to become an SRE, I think it's good to know what is the motivation for that. And honestly, I think the reality is that you see performance testing and you see SRE, you think you can get more money. It's maybe a more career opportunities because of that. But I would say This is my perspective. I've met a lot of performance testers, and not that many performance testers are digging into the detail. Hey, I found an issue. What's the issue? And then drilling into things like getting into how Java works at the platform, or getting into the Linux and infrastructure and operating systems, and how and really digging deep. If you're not interested in those things, or if it hasn't occurred to you to dig deep, I don't think that getting into reliability engineering is necessarily the right thing for you to do.
I can't agree with more on this. Unless you are ready to go down the rabbit hole, this really isn't for you. Because then you're going to be fighting fires every day. You have some issues coming and you patch them up and then move on. That bandage is going to blow up.
Yep.
So unless you are ready to go down the rabbit hole actually, and like hours go by and then you really don't notice it, that's the time you think, okay, fine, I am ready for this role. Otherwise, you are better off doing something where the scope is very charted out. Fine. You have a front-end developer, fine, back-end developer. But I guess this is actually true for any field, right? If you really want to excel in, you have to go deep. There are no two ways about it.
Well, at the very least, I am not the most technical person, but I was able to do quite technical things and learn them deeply because I kept asking questions and drilling in and saying, but why? And then going, but you say that, but the evidence is contrary, and then looking at the data and Anyway. And I guess the last question is, if there are people and they're like, I want to get an SRE, I want to get involved in this, it sounds interesting. What's your advice to them?
Yeah. So if you really want to get into SRE, I guess the step 0 to that is be very comfortable with Linux. That's going to be your bread and butter. Your own personal system, have Linux installed, just walk through it and be very comfortable with it. Linux is an ocean, right? And virtually everything, every tool out there that you have there, it's the stack there. So first of all, be very comfortable with Linux. Fine. Then you go with networks, understand how network works, same subnet, different subnet, how do machines communicate, what's a telnet is, how can machine talk over telnet, what an SSH is, can you really change the port, how do machine communicate, what's a passwordless SSH is, all those basic stuff. Spend time on it, understand the basic fundamentals of it, all those things. Maybe set up a mail server, see how the things works out. So all those basic stuff just to get you into groove and really like working on it. And if you really don't get bored by this time, then that's the clue to you. Okay, fine, you are ready to go into it. So first of all, spend time into Linux, understand all the basics and all, and then you move a step ahead, understand networking. And then right now the thing is all the apps getting containerized and all. Next, then there are two charted part, understand containerization. How do apps get containerized? But then you also need to understand some bit of programming around it. Maybe learn Python and create a small app. And then you think about, okay, fine. By the way, LLMs can help you a lot, or you can get any number of apps out there. So just try to host them yourself. I have an app, I have a binary. How can I host this on a container? And then how the ports are going to be exposed, how it's going to run on the system. So all of the things, when you keep doing, so you get a taste of how the production systems are actually running at scale. So these are, make your own workstation and then do all of these things. So you would be ready for this role. So yeah, that would be, if I was able to put it in a clear way. So,
that's good advice. I don't think I'd be a very good SRE at this point in my career. I'm not like Linux is. I can get around it, but it can be pretty rough when you get deep.
That is the number, I won't say number one. It's like the 101 for it. So unless you have it, you won't be a successful SRE. I don't know how can I put it. You can still learn to code and all. That would help you automate stuff. But this is the basic. I mean, I've still seen ops people who really don't know how to code, but they are really doing good because they have still other things. They work on network, switches and all of it. They have Linux server and they are quite happy with it. And someone who really wants to automate things. So now they want to learn some Python. They want to learn some shell scripts just to make their life better. But that's not really a must now, but Linux is a must. So yeah.
Oh, and the equivalent for performance testing was, if you don't understand HTTP protocol deeply, like truly understand exactly all the behaviors and how different things communicate with each other, and then the payloads of your specific applications and all the structures, then you're in for a bad time.
Yeah. There are hundreds of opportunities out there, right? You just have to see what actually ticks you. Is there something that you are really passionate about? And it's not sometimes, I think maybe performance testing sounds very cool. Cybersecurity sounds very cool. Once you spend time, try spending time, and that is the time. Maybe give it a month. Is it still the same? Is it the way you were 1 month before? So that's the time when you can say, I'm going to go for it. So yeah, give it time.
Thank you so much, Priyam, for chatting today and sharing your story and talking about all these topics about how to get, start an SRE and what it's all about. I'll put some links in the description of the episode if anyone who wants to connect with you or follow you. Any last words of wisdom before we sign off today?
Go deep. That was the wisdom. Pick one topic and go deep, and that's how you will be in that top 5%. That's where the magic lies.
Thanks again for jumping on and having a chat. And to everyone else out there, hope you have a wonderful week, and I will see you all next time.
Thanks, Stephen. Thanks for having. Bye, guys.